All right, so talking about our chambers, we got chamber A, which is, yeah, impact. Chamber B is, C is, D is, and then we have chamber E, inlet, so fuel pump pressure, so E, oops, chamber. Chamber E is fuel pump pressure. So it's a positive pressure. Positive pressure that does not affect the poppet. And I believe that's about 9 to 14 PSI is all the stuff I have on that. Seems a little low to me, but. And fuel metering force then. Fuel metering force is what? In the PR, we already did this, but in the PR58 is D minus C, and the PS5 is just D. Just delta. All right, operation of air and fuel metering force. Operation of air and fuel metering force. All right, as air enters the carb, air proportional to velocity hits impact tubes. So as air enters the carb, air proportional to velocity hits impact tubes. This air enters which chamber? Enters alpha. All right. This higher pressure enters chamber A of the regulating unit. I'm going to skip kind of through this and just get to the heart of what this is. Let's go to here. Let's go to this picture, and I'll try and write it on the side, and we'll see what we can do. So so one of the ways that I had done this, and I think I got this from a book or something. Here we go. So we went through and we gave everything a number. So, okay, so air enters the impact tube, right? Enters into chamber A, and this higher pressure enters A, and if we give this a value of, say, 1, we'll give that 1. All right. Then as air flows through the venturi, what happens?
Pressure goes down.
Pressure goes down, and we get some sort of pressure value here. We'll give that a 0.25, that much pressure. So how much pressure do I have moving this needle to the right, the poppet to the right? 1.25. So my air metering force equals what?
1.25.
Right now it's 1.25. It's just a random value. Is it always 1.25? No, it depends on where the throttle valve is. So I just put the throttle valve in some place, so there we go. Let's see. Let me see. Okay, unmetered fuel is delivered by the fuel pump at a pressure of about, we'll just go 9 to 14 PSI. Does that have any effect on the poppet? No. Okay, so then, let me see, 9 to 14. Air metering force opens the poppet valve, allowing unmetered fuel to enter chamber D. This pressure is less than E. Why is it less than E?
Restriction.
Because we have restriction. This pushes the diaphragm towards chamber. Pressure in D moves it to the right. I'm sorry, left. See, meter fuel pressure enters C. And what is my pressure in C? Okay, 5. All right, so if I have, now how much do I have pressure moving it to the right?
6.25.
6.25. So what does the pressure in D have to equal in order for this to be in equilibrium? 6.25, and that'd be in equilibrium. All right, let's see. Now, what if we added some throttle? I'll make that a little bit different color, adding some throttle. We add a little bit of throttle. What's going to happen to the pressure in A? All right, so we'll say it went up by that much, 1.25. And let's see, we had increased venturi, so what happens to the suction in B? All right, so we'll just give it a random value of 0.5. Well, what is C now?
5.
Well, we can do this a little slower. So we open the throttle. Throttle opened up, so we've got more pressure in A, more pressure in B, and A and B is called air metering force. So the poppet moves to the right. Well, we know that the pressure in C should be 5. So what did my pressure in D end up being? Well, the force to the right is now how much? 6.75 to the right. Okay, 5, 6, 7 point. So what is my pressure in D going to be?
6.75.
In D? 6.75. So it went up. And then we can do it backwards again, which I think I've pretty much covered this already. Just a very long way of getting around to it, so I just got it faster. Yep, skip that. All right, let's find something new here. If the diaphragm between C and D were to rupture, what would happen? Let's start with something easier. What happens if this diaphragm here ruptures? So what would happen to my air metering force? To what? I'd say be about 0. Because it can't push to the right, it can't suck to the right, so it's 0. So if my air metering force is 0, what would happen to the carburetor? What would the symptoms be? Would it run?
It would, but not very well.
Oh yeah, it would.
Your idle spring is holding your poppet open.
Yeah.
Idle spring's holding it open, so it'll run.
No, very little.
And idle, yeah.
Run fine at idle. So I try to give it some throttle. What is it going to do?
It's gonna run.
The more throttle I give it, the leaner it's going to get until it doesn't like it anymore. So if that diaphragm breaks here, then what happens? Only idle works. All right, what happens if, and I'm not going to write all this down, so you have to write on your own. What happens if this diaphragm ruptures?
Poppet would want to open it as far as it can.
Why would the poppet open all that it can?
Yeah, there's nothing opposing it.
So nothing's opposing it, but at the same time, nothing's helping A and B, but C and D fail.
You're just going to get incredibly rich.
Your discharge valve will open.
But A and B still work, so it would go to the right. I think it just runs super rich. It wouldn't run very well at all. You have a real problem. What happens if the seal at C ruptures?
You run rich.
The fuel would get
Sucked
run
into B.
rich. The fuel would get sucked out into the venturi and pulled back through.
Ooh, yeah.
Rich.
It happened with my.
As the Duke was saying, it's talking about did they put B, the chamber? This is
Yeah, it's a fail safe in case that seal fails.
instead of if you swap A and B, which you could do, right?
Hmm?
No.
Oh, yeah, you could. Yeah, there's no reason. Well, could you?
No,
you
but
gotta
that would
do-
move the diaphragm in a different direction.
Yeah. I don't know, but the fuel would come through here, get into here, get sucked out through this way, and go out that way. We're going to look at fuel injection. I do think they swap them. They do swap them. So you'll see what happens there. So a failed seal, it's going to run rich, only because it's going to suck extra fuel out. Otherwise, discharge nozzle is going to compensate for the loss of leakage. So that would not be a problem.
Wouldn't the icing also become possible then?
I don't think icing would necessarily. I mean, maybe.
You get fuel booster in the start valve
Yeah,
instead of the button.
possibly. It's a good thought. All right. Main parts. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Main parts of the pressure carb. We've got the, I can write this down. Main parts. Have the throttle unit. Let's see. Throttle unit contains, let me see. Impact tubes. It's going to have the impact tubes. The venturi. Possibly several of them. Let's see. Whatever. Controls and measures the mass airflow of the engine. The airflow is measured by volume and by weight. Contains impact tubes, venturis. Could have multiple venturis in these because these carburetors get really big. And the throttle valve. We have the regulator unit. Automatically regulates fuel pressure to metering elements in the fuel control unit. So it has chambers A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E, depending on how big it is, which style it is. We have the 2 diaphragms in the PR58. I should say diaphragms. Diaphragms, we got the poppet valve. Fuel control unit. Fuel control unit receives fuel under varying pressure from the regulator unit and meters it to the discharge nozzle. This is going to have the metering jets. And metering valves. Like the idle needle valve that we saw before. We got the discharge nozzle. Which does what?
Fuel
regulates
Pressure regulator.
Yep, regulator. So injects. I guess its primary job be inject fuel into the airstream. Let's see. It is a form. It is a form. It is a form of a pressure regulator. And may have a shutoff spring. May have shutoff spring. So you want to get a nice clean break of fuel. You don't want fuel dribbling on. Because when the fuel dribbles in, then the engine doesn't get a clean shutoff, and then it kind of may want to run on a little bit, make some noise. You want a nice, that's it, shut down. So we're going to look for that in all the systems that we're studying from here on out. How do we get that super clean shutoff? Well, we saw that with the Marvel Shoveler, with the valve, the mixture valve, right? Nice clean shutoff. So we want a nice clean shutoff. And so this one, when you reduce the fuel, so let's think about maybe the PS5 would be a good one to look at. When we pull the mixture back and we pull this back, we bleed air between A and B, so it ends up riding on the spring initially until we keep pulling it back more. Then it rides on the cam, which pushes up the plunger, which takes the spring, pulls it back. blocks this off right here, shutting off the fuel right here. We're still going to have some fuel pressure built up around here, plus the accelerator pump. But if you have a spring up here, like this, then it'll shut off right there.
Because you're also taking away the venturi there.
This one, let's see. The spring right there, once we start to dribble down and get low enough, this thing will shut down. So, look for a spring there. Let me see. Discharge nozzle. Yeah. That was the PR58 notes. See my Bendix Stromberg notes, which we already covered. The chambers A is what? I think we'll just review. Impact air. B is? Air metering force is? A plus B.
Oh, sorry, whoopsies, I heard something else.
A plus B. Fuel enters into technically kind of E on this one, which is purple. I think this one's 9 to 14 on this particular carb. Well, I'll just say 9 to 14. Maybe I'm wrong. Look it up. 9 to 14. Then it enters into D at the same pressure or less than. Less than, and D is considered. So air metering force, A plus B moves the poppet to the right. D moves it to the left. Okay. And then once it gets to C, that is metered fuel. If you get confused, look at the bottom. All right. See, operation. Fuel enters E and flows into D. Into D. Either because of idle spring or air metering force. So it went through here either because of idle spring or enough air metering force. Fuel flows from D past the metering jet to the idle needle valve. What's special about the idle needle valve? Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, there's some cases where it would be at a separate section of the engine and you would have a different needle for your idle needle valve.
Nope, that idle needle valve is slightly different. If you have that,
Automatic.
yes, the vacuum operated AMC. No. You have the up here, the secondary jet, the enrichment jet up here.
That's right. That acts as the economizer.
Yes. So at idle position, idle needle valve regulates the fuel. Why does the idle needle valve have to regulate fuel at idle?
Because there's
That step.
There's a range where it doesn't work, and you are either very rich at full idle or very, very lean right before it kicks in.
Why is that?
Because your air metering force doesn't work.
Because the air metering force doesn't work, so what's it riding on?
The minimum amount of the idle intake fuel, the minimum amount it gets.
If your air metering force doesn't work, then what is the thing that's keeping the poppet open? Spring. Does the spring know what position the throttle is in? Nope. Does not know, does not care. Well, maybe it cares, it just doesn't know. Let's see, as throttle is opened, idle needle valve opens and does not regulate fuel. It's now larger than the main metering jet. So once this down here is larger than the main metering jet, the metering jet does all of the metering. Before that, this is smaller, so it does the metering. Let's see, fuel flows next to discharge nozzle needle and then to discharge nozzle. Discharge nozzle. Discharge valve is spring loaded with a diaphragm. Spring keeps the valve closed until proper pressure opens it. So then we don't have fuel kind of dribbling in and making a mess too. So once we get proper pressure, hits the diaphragm, we have the vacuum plus the fuel pressure, bang, open, fuel starts to flow. When pressure decreases, valve closes to do what? Fuel pressure decreases, the idle needle does what? Closes. Why do I want it to close? Clean shut off. What did I write? When pressure decreases, valve closes quickly to prevent. To provide, not prevent. To provide fast and efficient cutoff. Also maintains a constant pressure downstream. Let's see. Air from chamber A, which is what? Impact air mixes here to emulsify. All right. Mixture control system, we covered that. Mixture control right here. Let's see. Allows air to bleed from chamber B, suction, into A or A to B, however you want to look at it. We covered that. We covered that. AMC, we covered the AMC well. You guys gonna be okay if I don't write all this down?
Yeah.
All right. If not, just listen to the recording and write down everything I say. Let's see. What happens if we get a ruptured bellows in the automatic mixture control?
It's like it's not there.
It's like run rich.
So it's not there. So the carburetor does what?
Run rich is you increase now.
Does it just run rich all the time? It runs rich when
When you rise in altitude.
when you go up in altitude. All right. Idle system. See, we covered that. We covered the acceleration system. We covered that power enrichment that was up here. I superimposed. We got all that. Ooh, that's a lot of words. Vapor vent system. What does that do?
It directs vapors back to the gas tank.
All right. Right back to the where?
Fuel tank.
Fuel tank. Okay. Let's see. Bendix series. Bendix series. Pressure carb. Designators. So we got the PR58, the PS5. Of course, everything means something. The P means
Pressure.
pressure. Pressure operated. S. Single barrel. What's the barrel?
The throttle body.
Throttle body's good. So all your Stromberg, your Marvel Shelby you're working on, that is a single barrel. If it had two openings going through and one casing, that would be a double barrel. D is downdraft. That would have been too easy if it would have been that. Downdraft, what does that mean?
Air flows down.
Air flows down, okay. H is horizontal, which means air goes sideways. Interesting enough. Oh, I didn't write down R, but I'm pretty sure R is. I might have misspelled that. Rectangular. So the PR58 is a pressure rectangular opening.
The big ass one?
Yeah, and they are. They're rectangular. So PR58. So we have the PS5. So PS is pressure single barrel, and it is. The PR58, pressure rectangular. All right. The dash number is bore size. This is stupid. Is bore size. Is bore size. What was your bore on most of your Strombergs? About 1.25 inches, 1 3/8.
Yeah.
Bore size in increments of 1/4 inch. So a dash 1, that doesn't make sense. Dash number is bore size equals a 1 inch. Let me see if this makes sense. Equals 1 inch. Oh, a dash, that's where it has to start. Dash 2 equals 1.25. Dash 3, well, I just jumped to 5 here. Dash 5 is 2. Oh, you guys are good at this. Dash 10.
Why is 5 2?
5 is 2 because it is.
One is starting at one.
Oh, so you just.
What? Yeah.
You're coding off of that.
Okay.
So we have 4 quarters.
5 is 2.
So is it 8? Is it?
I got 10. I just copied this. 10 is 3.25 according to what I did. It says note actual measured size is 3/16 long. I don't know.
You're just writing numbers down.
No, I'm just writing shit down.
So if it doesn't have an S,
It even said largest, which I know isn't true, so I don't know where I got this from. If that's true, what would a PR58 be?
jeez.
Yeah, 8 inches diameter.
58 divided by.
0.25 minus 1. Be 57.
And you add the
57 times 0.25.
Yeah, and you add the 1 on.
Yeah.
I got 15.5. It might be
I'm
15.25.
right. I mean, look at the size of that thing. It's got it might have.
It might be 15.25 because
It's about 15 inch.
yeah.
That might be right. That fucking thing is this big.
But it's not a single barrel.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be.
It might be measured like flat screen TV, so like corner to.
Yeah.
It's flat screen TV. That's how they do it.
No, that's measured quarter to quarter. That's that's like botany.
So you have to measuring not each barrel, but all the way across like that, maybe.
I mean, I bet it's like
We can test
what,
it.
it's about 12 inches by like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's way
Yeah.
bigger than 50. So those barrels.
So, I don't know. I just started making up stuff as I went.
I'm just arguing. I have no fucking clue, but I'm arguing.
Same here. So we're in agreement on that.
It's kinda like the-
I had no clue. It's not important.
Kevin, we should have been
If
lawyers.
there's no S, does it mean it's automatically double barrel? How's that
Well, according to the convention that was.
one? Okay, I get it.
Yeah, you know what the A stands for in front of all the airplanes? Airplanes.
So with each barrel, would you have a venturi with it? So like with the double barrel carburetor, it would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I was just looking at that picture, noting, look at right there. There's a little venturi there, and a little venturi there. So, yeah. I am not a pressure carb, like, you know. Yeah, I was going to say aficionado with it. That sounded a little,
Just ask Phil. He probably knows.
yeah.
I worked in a factory that made them.
There's some sub models. That's not important. Let's see. Sub models like B is airflow operated enrichment valve. C is manually operated power enrichment. D is the electric primer. F is the fuel head enrichment. It's not important right now. Let's see. I think in the video, don't I cover how to adjust at least a 5?
Yeah, PS5. Just
Because I don't think I have the diagram that'll show it, so I can't talk about it now because it'd be like, ooh,
not to really touch it. And just
say not to touch it.
there was like 2 things to adjust.
Okay, yeah, there's 2 things to adjust, yes. I can't really explain it here because I don't have a picture of the actual mechanisms, so maybe at break I can bring it in here. We can look at it. Let's see. Let's talk about the PR58 specifically, and let me ask you some questions.
Kevin, are carburetors, well, like with new aircraft, do they come with carburetors or is everything moves with the fuel injection?
Everything's fuel injection, as far as I know. No, not true. Rotax still has dual carburetors if you want.
Always assume Rotax is doing something different.
Yeah, it's
There we
always
go.
the opposite of everyone else.
No, all new Cessnas, as far as I know, they come with fuel injection. I don't know it. Yeah. Okay. This particular carb, what happens if the automatic mixture control fails? Rich as we get to altitude. Yep. We already covered what happens if the diaphragms fail. What happens if the vapor float fails?
You get air bubbles.
Either down, sinks.
There you go.
Sounds like you're at a party.
Momentarily.
You get a burp every once in a while, runs a little weird.
Nope. It sinks.
If it sinks, the fuel flows into the fuel tank.
I'd rather have it sink. Yeah, fuel just goes back to the fuel tank. What happens if it sticks in the up position?
Then you'll get burps every now and then.
Yeah, then you could get a little stutter every now and then. Let's see, 6, 7. Oh, this is some good stuff here. This is some new stuff. Okay. So you think starting the ground power unit is difficult. It doesn't get any easier than starting that.
That thing's easy.
That's the easiest thing there is to start, and then it gets more complicated. Starting a fuel-injected engine, pressure carb engine, you have to be extremely careful with what you're doing.
I saw the Bonanza starting. When that gentleman came, he had his Bonanza G36.
Yep.
Trying to start it, and it took a good minute or two to get it up and
A
running.
guy who knows his airplane inside and out. He is literally traveled the world in that airplane. He's an AMP, highly rated pilot, and he had a hard time getting it started. So it's like if that guy can't sit in the airplane, he's got, excuse me, 1,000 hours in. Don't think you're going to jump in an airplane and start it like that. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing. What happens when you don't pay attention to what you're doing? Ooh, do I have a picture of that? Let me see. Because that would be really fun.
We can get a hot start.
I want to say that was maybe... Great. I hate it when that doesn't work. I think it was actually in our last week's slides, and I didn't. Let me see. I'll just edit this part out. It'd be cool. Let's see. Was it? Pissing me off. Let me see. Did I do it here? All right, so starting a pressure carb. These are actually pretty easy to start.
You just said camera.
Comparably speaking,
Everything's relative.
not as easy as a carbureted engine with a primer system on it. All right, so think it through, because the idle spring, oops,
Yeah, it looks like a pen spring all wrapped around something.
because the idle spring, what's the idle spring do?
Keeps
Opens
Opens the poppet. And when does it open the poppet?
It's always open.
What if the engine's off and the key's not even in it?
It's open.
All right. And for those of you who aren't familiar with airplanes, you need to get used to the fact that when you get in your car and you turn the key on, before the engine starts, the car comes on, right? That's not how we turn on airplanes. Ever, never. There's a switch, and you turn the battery on and the generator on. You don't put the key in and turn it to turn everything on. It's the master switch. So if I get in an airplane and it's all off, and I put the key in and I turn it, what does it do?
Nothing.
Made the mags hot. It turned the mags on, but nothing happened. I shouldn't say turn the mags on. Somebody's going to think it started turning at that point. It makes the mags hot. So if you actually had a complete and total dead battery, you get in the airplane, you turn on the master switch, and nothing happens. Not a click, not a pop, nothing. You're like, uh-oh, battery's completely dead. You can turn the key on and get out, and you can pull the prop through and start it. Potentially. I wish you the best of it. If you're going to do this to a pressure carb or something with fuel injection, give me a call. I want to watch. Especially if it has a shower of sparks. Then it's really going to be fun. But the other ones, okay, because the poppet valve, because the idle spring opens the poppet valve, the fuel pump will provide fuel to the discharge nozzle. Even if the engine is not running. Now there is a potential, and I'm hoping, but I don't know, that the fuel pressure coming through here and up into here, I got to think it's enough to open the poppet valve, because you're not getting a whole lot of air movement at idle. So that would mean that you're not going to be relying on this suction right here from the venturi. You're not going to have any to open this up. So this engine still has to run at idle. So that tells me that fuel pressure alone is enough to open this up and let it run.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, how does that run?
It's got, you got to have both. And then this would then open that up more, is my assumption. But, so it is possible, with the engine off, put the mixture in, releases the spring is now opens up the poppet valve, turn on the electric boost pump, fuel is just going to come up and run through here, over to here, around through here, up, open that up, and start spraying out of here, or running out of here. And if it's updraft like this, and the engine's not turning, the fuel will come down here and start puddling up down in the air
So
system.
is that the problem with starting those things as they flood?
What's that?
Wouldn't it pull on the throttle valve?
No, it'll run off. Yeah. And usually crack the throttle anyway a little bit, so it's usually open some. If it's a downdraft, then it's going to flow down into the engine.
Is that the
Would that
problem?
high block you if you had too much fuel?
What's that? What?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to find here.
Yeah, why are they so young?
So the boost pump is providing enough force to open that theoretically.
Aw. Where's my? Maybe it's this one. All right. So you have to be careful with that. Don't let it sit there and run. What happens if I turn the boost pump on, but I got the mixture pulled all the way out? Ah, yes. So a friend of mine called me to their shop.
It's kind of strange.
They said, we need you to take a look at an engine for us. And I came in, I looked at it, I said, ooh, man. And this is the condition they gave it, showed it to me in.
Knock knock, who's there?
No.
Gonna say what you missed when you stepped out.
And I said, oh, that sucks. I would hate to be the person who was starting it when this happened. And one of the mechanics just went like this and walked away. And I said, it was him, wasn't it? He said, let the fuel run. So this is fuel injected. It's a little different, but not by much. And so you turn on the boost pump, you have the mixture in, fuel starts running. And in this particular engine, there's a nozzle up top near the induction that just sprays it in there. And so if the intake valve's open, it just starts puddling up inside the cylinder. And then when it hit the starter, it hits that fuel, which is a hydraulic, we call it hydraulic lock. So that piston can't move anymore. So something's got to give. And so pieces of the piston give and pieces of the conrod give. And so,
Just a little bend.
yeah, how much do you think that cost to fix?
Yes. About 5 aviation units.
Oh yeah, that'd be a start. So if you do this to an engine at the shop, I think you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Because it's, in a way, it's kind of carelessness. You weren't paying attention. You didn't know the system. And it's not placarded. Please do not push the mixture in and run the, it doesn't say that. You know, and even if you're using the checklist and it's like, all right, get out the checklist. Let's see. Turn on battery. Battery's on. Starting engine. Push in mixture. Let's see, mixture in. I gotta check Instagram. I should take a picture of this. This is fun. Oh, where was I again? Oh yeah, boost pumps are running. Okay, got that. Yeah, that sounds good. I hit starter. Click, bang. Right? You can't.
Well, what do you do? What do you do at that point once you let it run for 5-10 seconds too long? You just gotta.
Don't just stop at that point. Oh, okay. So shut everything off. Battery, key out, everything. Go out to the propeller, and by hand, gently pull it through. And people have
you do
radial.
radials too, huh?
Everybody with a radial engine does that.
The bottom cylinder.
Bottom cylinders fill full of oil all on their own. And so if they hit it to starter, and some of these radials, they don't start like you think they do, where you turn the key and the starter comes out and grabs it and starts to go. They have inertia starters, where you spin up the inertia and it gets going, and then you pull a lug and it goes whack, and it grabs onto a gear and starts spinning it. The starter's already going like 1,000 RPM, and the engine's got to catch up, and so there's no hope if you have a hydraulic lock.
I've
But-
seen them where they ought to put the 12 gauge blanket
Yeah.
and start some engines.
So okay, so that's my point here. That's what happens. That's very bad. Do not, when I say hydraulic lock, that's a boring picture. That's what you do to an engine. Don't do that thing.
So what's the typical time you want to run that fuel pump before you start it?
Okay, so everybody's got their own procedures. Mine, this is more fuel injected. So what I will do is, you can run the boost pump all you want if the mixture's back. I just don't trust it because it'll leak past. So I open the throttle, crack the throttle, they say 1/4 inch. That's moving it forward about 1/4 inch or so. I'll go mixture rich, boost pump on, and I'll look at the fuel flow gauge, which is a pressure gauge. And I'll watch it and I listen, and you'll see it start to come up. As soon as it starts to come up, I'll turn it back off. That's it. Because when the pressure gauge shows pressure, I know that the pressure came off of the manifold up front. Talk about that next week. If I have pressure there, then I'm starting to get fuel to the lines. Then I'll go ahead and try and start it.
Oh, so you just want a tiny bit of pressure.
Yeah,
You just want a tiny bit of pressure.
I don't watch it like that. I mean, it's going to go up half a gauge, so I'll let it go maybe 1/4 of the gauge up. Just a good indication. I've positive pressure. Shut it off.
That makes sense.
Boost pump, and then it's kind of a hot start procedure. It almost takes 3 hands. It's kind of hard. So then I'll pull the mixture all the way back into idle cutoff, because as the starter's going, one of the pumps is then running off the engine. And so I'll pull the mixture all the way back. I'll engage the starter and with the throttle quarter inch open. If I don't get anything, I'll move the throttle up. Doesn't hurt it. I'm just adding more air. Maybe I was a little too flooded. That adds air. That doesn't, I'll bring it back. That doesn't do it, I'll start to bring the mixture up a little bit. But usually it catches at that point. At that point, you got to bring the mixture back. And, mixture forward, throttle back. So you got start, mixture.
So is there like a, can you look at the fuel pressure gauge and kind of say that there's a no-go zone if you can't turn it back?
No, not really. It's just time. So you just don't want to run it very long. Some engines are really, really hard to start. And you're like our 310, you have to run that boost pump to the point where you're positive that you're going to hydraulic lock it. And then you've almost have barely any fuel. It's so messed up. But that's another thing. That's a broken airplane, so I shouldn't even. All right, so be careful. So running boost pump. Boost pump. Will flood. What's flood mean?
How much fuel?
Flood the engine. So we use the term a flooded engine, kind of just throw it out there. In the truest respect of the word, what people mean by that is you are beyond the rich mixture. You're beyond that 8-to-1. So 5-to-1, 6-to-1. Way too much fuel, not enough air. And so if that happens in a carburetor and you leave the throttle plate closed, there's enough suction that it keeps pulling fuel out of those little idle jets into the carburetor. Well, you're too rich to run, and what did you just add? More fuel. So is it ever going to start? No. So what you do is you have to open the throttle wide open. Now how much fuel comes out of the carburetor? Everybody should say none, because you're on the starter. It's below even idle. So with the throttle plate all the way open, there's not enough air going through the venturi to draw any fuel out. You've opened the throttle plate, so there's no suction on the idle jet, so you're getting no fuel whatsoever. And it'll start, then you'll get that air coming through, which will start washing some of the fuel out. And then it'll usually start at that point and then bring the throttle back. I had to start the GPU for somebody who had it flooded. Who was that?
Dude, because Kelly was like, keep pushing the thing, and then she did it, and she kept pushing that thing like so many times.
Yeah.
I think even Tommy was like, dude, I think it's flooded.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So I came out, I had no idea. I gave it one shot of prime. I'm like, that didn't do it. We were flooded.
Yeah.
So opened it wide open, just kept cranking, and black smoke shooting out. So running the boost pump will flood the engine. So flooding is not in itself bad. It just means you have more fuel than is going to ignite. That doesn't hurt anything. And may cause.
I didn't mean to interrupt that, but just on that subject.
Yeah.
Is running it backwards a faux pas?
No.
Okay, good. I'm not doing the wrong thing.
I had once.
I go wide open throttle and back 12 turns, and then it starts the first kick of that flood.
Yeah, if people with A65s and hand propping, so if I have to hand prop the little A65s belongs to a customer, I ask customer how to do it. because they're all different. And customers come up with the most bizarre ways to do it. They're like, watch. Right? So first of all, you get in the seat, then you get out. And then you get in again and you close the door twice. Right? Then you get out. And then they'll have this, I'm serious, it's like, and then you run the prop backwards 4 1/8. And then you put the throttle exactly 3/16 in, and then you do something else, and and then you pull it one blade and it starts. And then it does like every time, like, see, I told you. They're never wrong.
I can't wait till you have to help me with that. I'm going to tell you, you have to go out in front, you have to do a little dance.
Yeah. I know, you got to come out. I know. I'm serious. It'll start. I thought I killed somebody one time.
That got dark.
I had overhauled these cylinders on it was a PT something or another. An old World War II trainer. I don't remember what it was. A 5-cylinder engine on it. Fairchild or something. Anyway, didn't have a starter, so I overhauled these cylinders, and we were getting ready to run it for the first time, and so my boss is out there, and he was like the king of hand propping, right? So we're trying to hand prop this thing, we're getting nothing, and fresh overhauled cylinders and everything. And finally, the owner shows up, who was, 80-some. He's like, no, this is what you're gonna do. Come on, and he just tells me, I'm in the cockpit, and he tells me these things, all right, quarter throttle. Mixture here, key off, and he pulls it through a couple times. Now you're going to put the key in, and you put the throttle right here. Ready? Go. And this thing starts, and it goes like 1,500 RPM, and I don't see the guy anywhere. I mean, I'm in the cockpit. He's gone. I'm like, oh, shit. Well, I'm not shutting it off. I mean, he's either dead. But it was for an eternity, I swear. And finally, I'm looking at everybody else. I'm trying to judge by the expression on their face. What do I do? It's just dragging on and on. And finally, I see the guy come walking around. It's like, that's good. You're alive. Obviously, that was a long time ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. It scared me so bad. So, start engines. Let me hang on. I'm not going to, because there's different procedures, and I don't want to give you this is how you do it. I'll talk more about it. I think we get into fuel injection, because our Bonanza has a pressure carb PS5, and I don't think it has a primer, if I remember correctly, on this engine. And so it's kind of a weird thing to start. So it actually has a hand pump. It has a boost pump, a hand pump, and an engine-driven pump. And so it's like to start our Bonanza, I will crack the throttle, have the mixture back. I will pump the hand pump until I see fuel pressure on the gauge. Then I can engage the electric start, and that will actually do something with the electric pump if I want to use it. But I don't. I usually just leave it off, and then I'll make it rich. Hand on the throttle, set the throttle, hit the starter, and wobble the pump and get a little pressure, and then it takes off. So it's weird. Let's talk about water injection. Oops, break time.